I told you several months ago I had a little interaction with some of my Canadian friends and relatives over the issue of God and his character. And they responded with, God is a God of compassion and love. He loves everyone. He has compassion for everyone. He would never do anything bad to someone. And I thought, what Bible are they reading? I know it's in the Old Testament, but it's in the New. You think, well, I'm just a New Testament person. I believe in the church age, and that God is a God of love and mercy and grace. And I thought, well, that's good, because Ananias and Sapphira thought the same thing. And all they did was lied. And how many times have you lied? And how many times have you misrepresented something? And how many times have you acted spiritual and you weren't really? They came to church and said, we sold our property. It cost us $100,000. We got $100,000. Here it is. And the truth was they'd sold it for $200,000. I understand I'm making up the numbers because the Bible doesn't tell us the numbers. But let's say $200,000 they sold it for, but they gave $100,000 to the church. Pretty good deal. All they had to say was, here's $100,000. We kept $100,000 for ourselves. But they didn't. They said we sold it for $100,000, and they actually sold it for $200,000. And they lied to God. What's really interesting about that verse in Acts is that Peter calls him in, deals with the husband, and then I like the verse where he's dealing with the wife and gets her in and says, okay, hey, what'd you sell the house for? She says, well, $100,000. He said, $100,000. Not two, huh? 100? Oh yeah, 100. We gave it all to the church. And then Peter says, you hear those steps? Now understand, this is a paraphrase. You hear those steps outside? Those are the feet of the guys who just took your husband to the grave, and they're coming to get you for lying to God. Church age, after the resurrection, after the church had been established, after the New Testament era started, and God killed 2 people for lying. God did. And Peter looked at her and said, why have you chosen to sin against God? These feet are coming for you now. And she died right then. Ananias died earlier. She died second. And they buried him. And then the last of that chapter says, and fear fell all over the whole church. Well, wouldn't it happen if that happened this on Sunday? You came up and said, here's my offering. It's my 10%. I just want you to know that, Lord. Here's my 10%. And the Lord says, 10% of what? You liar, you thief. And then you passed over and died? What would the rest of us think? Let me make up my 10%, Lord. Listen, there's fear because we don't really believe God is like he is, that he's eternal. We think he's different. And we're going to get into some more stuff about God being eternal. But you think about it. This is a God, if you will change your thoughts about God and what he's like to be biblical, it will change your behavior. Now, secondly, there are some traditional philosophical proofs for the existence of God. And I wanted to give those to you so that you could have those in your head. And like I said, it'll be on your, in the notes. I'll put them on a PDF form and you can have them. Stephen Evans is a professor of philosophy at Calvin College, and he points out believing in God is not like believing in the Loch Ness Monster. The Loch Ness Monster is merely one more thing. He said, God, however, is not merely one more thing. The person who believes in God and the person who does not believe in God do not merely disagree about God. They disagree about the very character of the universe. We don't just disagree about God. It's about the one who created everything. Now, I wanted to give you these are traditional philosophical for the proofs of the existence of God. Now, we live in a day that, what's difficult about this is these things convince me there is a God. They don't convince me about what he's like. I don't know that from these proofs. All I know is there has to be a God. The problem we have in our world today is that people are illogical. They're just flat. Okay, what's the best word for that? Foolish. They're illogical. Because when you look at the universe and you look at these proofs for God, you have to conclude that there is a God. Because to live without this proof is an absurdity. It's a foolish absurdity. And yet people live like God is not real and doesn't exist. The first one is called the ontological, and It means from being. All right, the ontological argument, or proof for being, is traced to the 11th century theologian Anselm, who said that God is something of which nothing greater can be conceived. He's the greatest being. If you can't think of anything bigger, it's God. And that's where he stands. The laws of logic dictate that there must be an end to the thoughts of perfection, and that end is God who exists. In other words, we look at ourselves and we say, I'm not perfect, but if I would stop this, I'd be a little bit more perfect. And if I'm perfect, a little bit perfect, a little bit more perfect, a little bit more perfect, pretty soon I'm at the perfect. There must be the perfect. And the perfect we'll define as God. If we don't believe that there's something better and then better and then better and then something perfect, what kind of world do we have? The ontological proof that Anselm came up with was basically, if we believe that there is this, I can be better and better and better, I have to at some point come up with perfect, right? I mean, we all think about doing it perfectly, right? Thomas and I have been working on my front porch this last week, and it's perfect. Well, it's more perfect than it was. Okay. Yeah. But we look at it, and there's mistakes, and there's this, and there's this cut that's not right. And it's kind of like sewing, you ladies. If you sew it all, it can never be perfect. But we have this dream of the perfect, and some guys get closer to that perfect. There is this sense in life where we have this sense of something is perfect up there, and I want to rise up to it. If you want to be perfect in your life, you have to have a goal. What is it that you look at? Well, you look at God and his character, and you say, he's perfect, I'm going to be like him. That proves there has to be something out there that's perfect. Is any human perfect? No. So the idea of perfect implies there is a God. All right? You get it in your head, it implies that. Someone who thinks there is no God is a fool, because he has no sense of perfect, no sense of excelling, no sense of that. What does that mean? No better than an animal. The second proof is the cosmological, or the first cause argument. Observes that since the universe exists, there must be a God who created it. So the first cause, you know how cause and effects works, right? You do something and something comes out as an effect of it, and then something else causes this and causes this, and all these causes cause other things to happen. Well, what started it all? So here's what happens in evolution. You got evolutionists who believe in the Big Bang Theory, and somehow it just started. Okay, how did it do that? Who just started it? So you talk to them and you find out one supposed to be an intelligent man says, well, our universe started when two other universes collided and made this universe. You think, what? And where did we come from? Well, some aliens dropped us in here. Yeah, and the problem is, where'd the two universes come from and where'd the aliens come from? See, at some place, even if you think that we were seeded by some aliens on this earth, where did they come from? Well, somebody seeded them. Where did they come from? It's just foolishness. At some point, you're going to have to believe that God was at the beginning and eternal. And at some point, you got to say, just a rational thinking person is going to come to the end and say, ooh, there had to be a first cause. There's an old saying in philosophy. It is ex nihilo nihil fit. It means out of nothing, nothing is made or comes. You can't get something from nothing. Okay? Now, what do we believe as Christians? We believe that God created from nothing and created stuff itself. And so we don't have to worry about, matter can't create matter. Does that mean anything to you? How can stuff create stuff? What created the first stuff? Where did stuff come from? Where's my stuff? Where's my stuff? The kids used to laugh about there was a movie. Where's my stuff? Some girl in some movie. Where's my stuff? Where does stuff come from? Matter can't create matter. Listen, in philosophy, you think about it, you cannot have matter creating matter. Because what created the first matter to create the matter we have? That means that non-matter created matter. God is not matter. He matters, but he is not matter.